Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. Welcome to the American Prepping Academy. Today we are going to talk about bug out bags 101. Now I have I have resisted doing a lesson on bug out bags for a very long time, but I want to do it for you guys, for the patrons, because I've had a few people hit me up about it and stuff, and so I thought that I would throw my thoughts out on it. But I want to caution you guys that the reason I've been hesitant to do a bug out bag video or lesson on this is because you really have to know your own environment. So this lesson is going to be a generalized overview, and it may not. There may be recommendations in here that don't fit for your situation because I don't know what your situation is. So take everything you see and hear with a grain of salt and make sure that you really apply it to your situation, your environment, your weather, etc., etc. So we're going to take a look at just kind of a quick definition, some planning considerations, a pack recommendation, and then the contents, kind of broken down into basically three categories: everyday carry gear, the essential items in the pack, and then some optional items based on weight, availability, and that kind of thing. Okay, so bug out bag defined. Um, Bug out bag means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and so I think it's before we get into this too deep, we got to define this. And a bug out bag is used, what it's used for, and what mission it's going to help you complete. A bug out bag, in my view, is a backpack that's filled with items that are going to help you get from point A to point B, in under 72 hours. And this is different than an I'm never coming home bag or an inch bag. And so it's going to have different items in it. You're also going to want to have a destination in mind. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. If you don't have a destination in mind already and you're just like, man, I just don't know where I'm going to go, but I want to have something packed, then you really need to be thinking more along the lines of an I'm never coming home bag or an inch bag. Now, that is not, when it says I'm never coming home, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to live indefinitely with a backpack. But you just have to design these things a little bit differently. If you're planning on going long term, you're going to have a different set of gear than if you're just planning on using it to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. So the one we're talking about today is point A to point B as quickly as possible. We can do a lesson on an I'm never coming home type inch bag at a later time if you want. Okay, a bug out bag should be assembled in a custom manner based on your environment and your needs. So pretty much every person's bug out bag will have different components. Ideally, you do not want it to weigh more than 20% of the person's body weight who is carrying it, unless that person has a lot of experience carrying packs and they're used to carrying the weight, of whatever it weighs. This 20% factor is going to very much limit how much weight you will be able to take with you and what items can be in it. And so for this reason, it's very important to focus on the fundamentals of what will keep you alive, and do not worry about a bunch of extra or nice to have items. Okay, a lot of people, a lot of videos out there on YouTube and different places that show a ridiculous amount of things and stuff that you are probably never going to use at all. And you're not going to see that in this video. Okay, let's see here. As a general rule, most people will only be able to go for about 3 to 5 days with what you can carry in your backpack. All right, so additionally, your pack is going to be kind of oriented and equipped based on how far you have to go, right? If you're going to predetermine that location where you're going, then you can have an idea of what exactly you're going to need. Okay, so as far as planning goes, in general, you should plan on traveling, if as worst case scenario, on foot at about 3 miles per hour on flat and even terrain for adults who are in average shape and who are not used to carrying a backpack. So that's about 20 minutes per mile. If you have children, you can expect that number to be about 1.5 miles per hour, depending on their age, if they're younger kids. So, as an example, then, if you have an average adult with no children traveling on flat and level terrain, you can realistically expect to cover, the most ground you can realistically expect to cover in one day is about 30 miles. That's about it. And I am only planning on 10 hours a day when I come up with that number, because you're going to need breaks. You're going to need sleep. You're going to have detours. There's going to be problems. There's going to be injuries, etc., etc. So I really wouldn't plan on I'm going to walk 24 hours straight, that kind of thing. You're just planning to fail if you do that. Bring this all up because it's important for you to think about, when you're planning your bug out location. Anything more than 150 miles is probably just unrealistic for most people to accomplish in a perfect scenario. And walking 150 miles without anything bad happening is extraordinarily unlikely in this situation. So you really want to try to find a place that's close and in a reasonable distance. Because and like I said, that's the perfect scenario. Then if you add in random acts of violence, police checkpoints, tons of hills, bad weather, injuries, it's just going to get to be a mess before too long. So as you can see, a much more realistic number is probably something in the neighborhood of 50 miles total distance to your bug out location. All right. And that's still going to be a long ways, but that's more realistic. So just to give you an idea for when you're planning this stuff, when you're looking at your area and you're trying to figure out where we should go, you ideally would like to find something within 50 miles of you. Now, of course, this is all if you're only going to be able to bug out on foot if you don't have a vehicle, right? Now, if you're going to have a vehicle, you could always go a little bit further or whatever the case may be. And of course, as I've said during lots of other videos, you should always, always, always plan on using your vehicle. If that fails, you can't use that. Think about using an ATV or a UTV, maybe a golf cart, an e-bike, a bicycle, maybe even just pulling stuff instead of carrying it on your back, like on a game cart or something. You kind of want to go, transition down if at all possible. That's just going to allow you to cover more ground quicker. It's going to get you to your destination sooner, and it's going to allow you to carry more equipment and all that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. When we're talking about on foot, we're talking about this is the worst case scenario. Okay, so as far as pack recommendation goes, if I had to narrow it down to just one pack, it would be the Everly Stock Gunslinger 2. I have this pack. I've carried it and I've rucked with it multiple times, and it's a great pack. It really is. It's not too big to where you can overstuff it, but it's big enough that you can get everything that you need in there, and you can strap everything that you need onto it. The great thing about it, as you'll notice, is it is able to carry a rifle. Now, you really want to have a pack that is able to carry a rifle. It needs to be a sturdy pack, but it also needs to be able to carry a rifle, because carrying a rifle when you're walking long distances all day long is a massive pain in the ass. Okay, if you've never done it, trust me, it sucks. And if you think, oh well, I got a sling, you put that sling over your neck and you're carrying it, and your neck starts killing you, and it sucks. Having a pack to be able to throw that rifle into is so much better. It's just so much better. So that to me is a must-have. Now you also want to be able to add patches, have some molly webbing on there so that you can add pouches as needed, and it needs to be comfortable with really good cushion on the shoulders and the back, and you also need to be able to integrate a water bladder with it. And this pack does all of those things. So I think it's a good pack. Your mileage may vary. You may want to choose something different. This is just my personal recommendation. It is heavy. It's a heavy duty pack. Even just by itself, it weighs a few pounds. But it's a pack that's going to last, and it's not going to give out on you. It's not going to give you any problems or anything like that. Okay, so for content, all the pictures in here are just representative samples. They're not necessarily, don't look at this picture and say, well, he didn't mention that item. These are just kind of just to help the visual appearance of the lesson. So when we're figuring out the contents of the lesson, you've heard me repeat this multiple times if you've been here on Patreon for a while. We have 9 basic needs for modern survival. That's going to be sustenance, which is food and water, protection from the elements, which is clothing and shelter, health and medical, power and heat generation, security and self-defense, communication and intel, navigation and travel, tools and admin. And if you cover all of those areas at the basic level, then that's going to get you all the items that you need to have in here. All right. And this list also assumes that you are carrying, your EDC gear, okay, your basic EDC gear that you would normally carry, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that should be as well. Okay, so for the first section on food, the amount all depends on how far you anticipate you'll have to travel to your location and destination, like we were talking about earlier. I recommend, though, having at least 1 to 2 MREs so that you can eat while walking. You don't have to cook it. Then the remainder of the stuff in freeze-dried food to save weight. The idea being that you'll be able to be outside, you'll be able to get outside of that urban and suburban area before you have to stop and cook food. Generally speaking, most people will shoot for 3 to 5 days worth of food, but again, that depends on your destination. A couple of really good options that store well for several months as far as snacks go are beef jerky, trail mix, and Cliff Bars. So, like I said, get those MREs. That way you can be walking and moving and still eating and keeping your energy up. Once you get a reasonable distance outside of where all the people are, then you can start to stop and rehydrate, freeze-dried foods and stuff like that. But you really want to be able to beat feet early on in this whole journey and not have to stop much. That's why I recommend the MREs, even though they're a little bit heavier than freeze-dried food. I mean, when you add the water back into freeze-dried food and stuff, the differential is not that much anyway. But okay, so for water, I recommend 3 liters per adult as a minimum. All right. Much more than that, and it's going to begin to become a weight issue for most people. But you're also going to need to have a way to gather and purify additional water because 3 to 4 liters will not last that long, especially if it's in the summertime. I also recommend carrying a 1 liter stainless steel bottle, single wall stainless steel bottle, and then a 2 or 3 liter Camelback hydration bladder in the pack. This way you can easily hydrate as you walk. The stainless steel bottle can be used to gather water from open ground sources, and you can also boil water in it if needed to hydrate your freeze-dried meals. Then you can use water purification tablets to purify the water in the stainless steel container, or you can add water purification tablets to the Camelback just to make sure that when you do, you mix it up well and wait for about an hour before drinking and also make sure that the drinking tube has been purified as well. And basically you just want to, once you've shaken it up and you put the water purification tablets in there, shake it up, let it sit about an hour, and then squeeze out, some water through the tube before you start drinking it, just to make sure there's no contaminated water in that tube that didn't get purified. Okay, let's see here. You can also carry a small filter as long as weight isn't an issue. I recommend the purification tablets if weight is a problem. If weight is not a problem, then go ahead and add a small filter. I recommend the Katadyn or Katadyn Mini or the Katadyn Hiker Pro. I don't recommend using Sawyer or Life Straw, especially in areas that have freezing temperatures, because the micro hollow fiber tubes can easily burst inside the container and you don't know that it's been compromised. If you live in a desert area or an area with very little open groundwater, then you may need to carry more water than recommended above, depending on the temperatures and the distance that you plan to travel. You also, may want to carry a small folding shovel in case you need to dig for water. All right. If you're going to carry a Sawyer, that's fine, but make sure that you replace it every year. Okay, because it's just too easy for those things to fail without you knowing about it. And I did a whole video on that. I think I've got it archived here on Patreon as well. If not on YouTube, one of the two. Okay, so protection from the elements. We're talking about clothing and shelter. Clothing is your first line of defense, and you want to have good heavy-duty clothing. This is especially applicable for children and females who typically don't wear more heavy-duty clothing. I recommend carrying one pair of either subdued clothes or camo clothes, and then one pair of regular civilian clothes. And your civilian clothes can be subdued as well, don't get me wrong. But I like the option of being able to go into full commando, if you want to sneak and peek, or just be in regular civilian clothes. I think having that option to switch between the two is probably a good idea, and it would allow you to deal with, more situations depending on what's going on. Okay, the next thing is, okay, so I wanted to go over this here. So, like I said, having an extra pair of clothes is good if weight is an issue and you just can't cut the weight enough and can't justify carrying an extra set of clothes. Then at least carry a set of wool socks, underwear, and thermal underwear, especially if you're in a colder climate with that thermal underwear. You will also need to have a sleeping bag or a light bivy bag depending on the climate. A lot of people try to get by without going with sleeping bags, and that is a mistake. You really do need to have a sleeping bag. The number one killer of people in the wild is exposure and or hypothermia. So if it gets cold, a snap weather system comes in or something, you really need to be able to create a microclimate and keep your body temperature at 98.6 degrees. Okay, for shelter, if you're in a colder environment or a place with a lot of open prairie and wind and few trees, you're going to need to carry a freestanding tent for sure. I think that's a standard for pretty much wherever you live. But if you live in a warmer climate with a lot of trees, you can get by without having a tent, as long as the bugs aren't too bad. It is really nice to be able to zip that thing up, get the bugs away from you when you're sleeping at night, especially if you're in a place with a lot of infestation of mosquitoes and all those kinds of things, because that is hard to deal with if you're sleeping in a like a hammock and a rain fly. The bugs can be really irritating. Okay, as far as tents go, try to find one that's subdued colored, somewhere under 4 pounds. I recommend taking a look at Snug Pack. They offer a few good designs. Like I said, if you're in a warmer climate with a lot of trees, hammock with a bug netting and a rain fly, you can do that. Although just realize bug nettings are not 100% by any stretch. They do work pretty good, but just they're easy to rip and all that kind of stuff. There can be problems. Okay, if you do not have more than a day or two worth of walking, you can probably get away with just carrying a military-grade poncho and sleep leaning up underneath a large tree, or use the poncho for like a pup-style tent or something like that if you've got a shorter trip. This is not going to offer any shelter from the bugs, so make sure you've got bug spray and all that kind of stuff. So again, there's variables here, right? We want to think about that. All right, so next section is power and heat generation. In this section, you're going to primarily focus on heat generation, meaning that you need to have a good fire kit. Although in most bug out situations, you should seriously consider going without a fire so that you don't draw attention to yourself. But if a fire is needed, you could always use a Dakota hole fire pit. I've done a video on that on YouTube. And as far as what contents should be in a basic fire kit. I just recommend carrying like 15 to 20 Vaseline soaked cotton balls in a small little baggie, about a half of a dinner candle. Okay, so just a stick candle that's maybe 4 inches long or so, something like that. A 4-inch, half-inch, a 4 by half-inch diameter ferro rod and striker. And those 3 things combined can get you a good fire going in almost any circumstance. It's really all you need. A lot of people like to take a fire kit and have all tons of different stuff in it. You don't really need all that. Just some cotton soaked or some Vaseline soaked cotton balls, a little half of a candle, and a ferro rod. And you could throw in a Bic lighter, but that should be in your EDC anyway. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need. So for power generation, just make sure that you have extra batteries for any battery powered devices that you have with you. And maybe if you've got enough weight there, then you might want to take like a small rechargeable power bank, or a battery bank or whatever to recharge your cell phone as well. Okay, and if optional, if the weight allows, also a little solar charger for recharging batteries might be okay. Although again, remember, we're just going from point A to point B, so probably one set of batteries will do fine, and it'll be more tolerable on the weight constrictions. Okay, so for contents, health and medical, 3 basic issues that we're gonna look for here. Small first aid kit for boo-boos. We're talking about Band-Aids, moleskin, maybe some antibiotic ointment, those kinds of things. Just your basic little first aid kit. Adventure Medical makes some good ones. Then you're also going to want a trauma kit for major bleeding. Remember, this situation is dangerous enough that it has forced you to move from your home and to go out somewhere else. And so that means it's pretty darn dangerous. And that means that there could be a likelihood of getting into a gunfight and or just falling on a sharp stick or who knows what. So you need to be able to control major bleeding. So having a trauma kit is important. The next thing, the last one, is emotional and spiritual health. Might want to take some pictures of family, or maybe a Bible or something along those lines. But that shouldn't be overlooked as well. Okay, so contents for security and self-defense. Again, we're in a dangerous situation, right? You want to have your EDC gear. We'll talk more about that in a minute as far as the contents go. You want to also have some body armor. Now, we're not going to get carried away here. We're talking about a soft vest at a minimum. So like a level 2 or a level 3A. Something that's flexible that you could put on underneath your shirt, and you could throw your backpack on top of it. You could wear it concealed so nobody could see it. If you have the weight allowances, then you could throw in a level 3 or level 4 plate into your backpack. And the reason I say that is because weight constraints are not going to allow you to carry a full set of plates, a full set of level 4 plates, and all your get up and everything. It's just not going to be practical for you to be able to do that. But if you have one plate in each person's pack, then most likely if a situation comes up, you're going to try to break contact immediately anyway. So if you're turning and you've got a plate in your backpack, that's going to help you from getting shot in the back as you run away. The next thing is you're going to run to cover. You can throw down that backpack and get behind it to actually engage target from if need be, because you've got that plate in there. So it's really all depends on if you're going to have the weight to do it. If you have the money to buy a lightweight plate, Shot Stop Armor has some lightweight plates that only weigh a couple of pounds. That's kind of what I'm thinking when I'm recommending this, is a lightweight, hard, bulletproof plate. Hope that makes sense. As far as the rifle goes, it's really up to you what you decide and what your local laws are and all that kind of stuff. But I would say if you can, you want to have a rifle and 4 magazines with a chest rig. I wouldn't carry too much more than that because it's going to get real heavy real quick if you do. And the chest rig, I don't consider that part of the 20% of the weight. The rifle and chest rig, I don't consider that part of the 20% weight requirement. Same thing with the body armor. So I weigh that separately and have kind of figured that in. Then you're going to want to have some non-lethal options as well. Let me see in my notes here. What did I miss? Kind of got a little bit off track. You're going to want to also carry a 6-inch long full tang fixed blade knife on your belt, because that can also be used as a weapon if need be. And as far as the your rifle, I'm going to say, recommend something like an AR-15 pistol or a lightweight carbine. You don't want to have something really big and heavy, and you're not going to be looking like a precision rifle or something like that. But something lightweight and small, maybe even a pistol caliber carbine, something like that. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about the non-lethal options and stuff like that here in just a second as well. Okay. So the next section is going to be communication and intel. I recommend carrying at least 2 walkie-talkie style radios. And, it just basically depends on how many people are in your group and all that kind of stuff. But if you've got 4 people, then you want to at least have 2 radios, because you would obviously never want to split up into groups of smaller than 2. So 2 radios should be fine. That's going to give you some short-range communication capability, and it's also going to increase your ability to work together tactically and those kinds of things. If you've got the weight allowances, 1 radio per person is fine, but that's probably not going to be necessary in most family situations. I would also recommend having at least 1 very small AM/FM radio and a set of earphones. That way you can collect information, intelligence about what's going on in the outside world. You might be able to sub in a scanner in place of that, or if you have enough weight allowance. If you've got an optic on your rifle, then you probably don't need a set of binoculars or a monocular. But if you only have a red dot with no magnification, you might want to consider some sort of a binocular setup, like an 8 to 10 power binocular or a monocular. Monoculars are obviously lighter and probably the better way to go. But again, if you've got a variable powered like a 1 to 6 or a 1 to 8 optic on your rifle, then you really don't need this. You could also throw in there as a potential option a rangefinder if you wanted to. But okay, I think that's pretty much that. Okay, so for travel and navigation, you're going to want to look at having a waterproof map and compass and a protractor. I did a video on this on how you can use clear shelving or contact paper to waterproof your maps. It's a pretty good way to do it. Also, you want to have some ranger beads to keep track of how far you've gone. If you don't know how to use ranger beads, I'll try to get up another lesson on that at a later time. Basically, you just pull down the bead, 1 bead every 100 meters, and then pull down, once you go 1,000 meters, then you pull down one of the top ones, and it helps you keep track of how many kilometers you've traveled. Okay, if you've got the weight allowance, you could go for having a GPS and extra batteries, although I really prefer map and compass. You get so much more information out of a map and compass than you do, or out of a map specifically, than you do a GPS. Additionally, you do want to try to always travel. I mentioned this briefly earlier. You want to always try to travel by some other means than going by foot. If you can take your truck or your car, do it. If you can't take that, go with the UTV or the ATV. If you can't do that, then maybe an e-bike or a bike. If you can't do that, at least try to carry your backpack on like a game cart or a shopping cart or something along those lines. Last resort, then you go on foot. Okay, so tools, the tool section here. This really just covers the basic stuff. Most folks are going to carry, knives, multipliers, cutting tools, small axes, machetes, saws, those kinds of things. But this, like all other categories, really depends on your environment and your situation. If you're in an urban area, it may be beneficial to carry something like a crowbar or a set of bolt cutters. If you are in a desert area, it might be more beneficial to carry like an entrenching tool or even a full-size shovel so you can really dig down for water if that's what you need. It just depends. So, but that's the tool section. You can also throw in there force multipliers like night vision and thermal. Again, it all just depends on what your weight constraints are going to be, because that is going to be the limiting factor when you start putting this stuff together. Okay, so the admin section, this is probably the boringest section, but it's also really important. This is primarily going to be for identification, cache, your emergency binder. I'd also recommend having your entire emergency binder backed up on a DVD and or a flash drive and in the cloud, as well as a physical binder. Even though it may seem like the world is coming to an end, if you had to bug out, the odds are that within a few weeks, you're likely going to be able to return home if things settle down. Now, it may be possible that you would need to prove your residency, who you are, or that you rightfully own your home, etc. The bottom line is the status quo is more likely to happen or to return than a full-blown SHTF situation. So you need to make sure you've got your admin squared away, because even though we think, preppers tend to think, okay, if it's going to get bad enough that I have to bug out, then that's it. It's bad. It's going bad. It's never going to get good again. Well, that's just not reality. It's more likely that it's going to be bad for a short period of time, and then it's going to get better. So think about that, and think about the things that could happen. When you go back to your home, you may have to show authorities, hey, these people squatted in my house, and this is my home. I was gone for a while, but now I'm back. I own this home. Here's the the deed or the title or whatever the case may be, and you need to kick them out or whatever. So just think about that. Okay, so everyday carry items. I basically, in this kind of situation, what I would be recommending is a pistol, and we're going to be looking at like a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. I personally carry the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 M2.0. I also carry the Smith & Wesson Shield M&P Shield as well. And in this case, in this situation, I might carry the Shield on an ankle and then put the M2.0 on my hip. I'm going to have at least 2 extra magazines for the primary pistol. I'm going to carry a tactical folding knife. I personally it's not like super amazing. It's just it's just the Ontario Rat 1. As you can see, I use the heck out of it. It's a good strong knife, and they're only like $30. So, and the pocket clip on it is really good. So that's what I carry. You also want to have a tactical flashlight. I've got folding knife in there twice, and this should be flashlight. I prefer the types of flashlights that have a crenulated bezel on it so that you can also use it as a striking device as well. You want to carry a small multi-tool, a Bic lighter, a pocket-sized Fresnel lens so that you can start fires with it if need be, a tourniquet, and then some non-lethal option. Brass knuckles, coup baton, collapsible baton, pepper spray, etc. Whatever works for your jurisdiction. Okay, now for the essential items. Again, when I say essential, in your environment, in your situation, this may not be, but I think as a general rule, these will probably apply for most people. Give me a little leeway on this. Okay, so backpack, food, water and water purification tablets, change of clothes, the sleeping bag or bivy bag, tent, hammock or poncho or tarp, whatever. I recommend tent if possible. Fire kit, first aid kit, trauma kit, toilet paper and or baby wipes, soft ballistic vest, and if you've got enough weight, level 3 or 4 plate in your backpack. Then a 6-inch long, at least 6-inch long, full tang fixed blade knife, rifle with 4 magazines and a chest rig, walkie-talkie, small AM/FM radio and earphones, or a scanner, either one, extra batteries for the radios, pair of binoculars or a monocular if you don't have any optic on your rifle, and you could optionally throw in a rangefinder if you have the weight allowance. So I guess it's not really essential, but anyway, waterproof maps, compass, protractor, and a whistle. Okay, so it's really pretty basic. That's not a lot of stuff. And with the tent, you know, you could split up the rain fly for one person and then the main body of the tent for the other. Like if you've got a husband and wife situation, you know, you could let one person carry the poles, one person carry the stakes, and kind of split the weight difference or whatever. I think you'll find that you're getting close to 20% of your body weight real quick with just these items. Again, the rifle and magazine and the EDC gear and stuff doesn't count in that weight. Just your backpack with water. Okay, so optional items as weight allows and based off of your situation and your environment. Headlamp, extra batteries, Leatherman multi-tool, safety glasses, gloves, 550 cord or bank line, fishing kit, cook kit, eating utensils, stove and fuel, water filter, sleeping pad, folding saw, machete, hatchet, axe, folding shovel, extra eyeglasses, night vision or thermal device, lockpick kit, hand warmers, duct tape, gun cleaning kit, hat, sunscreen, bug repellent, snowshoes, mosquito net, toiletries, soap, shampoo, washcloth, toothbrush, toothpaste, small external USB battery bank, small foldable solar panel to recharge the battery bank or other devices, notepad or pencil. Again, some of you might look at some of these and goes, dude, how could you not have this as an essential item? Again, we're just looking at the things that you really need to keep you alive and maintain your security and all those kinds of things. So a lot of this stuff is it's really just optional when you get down to it. Okay. And that's pretty much it. So, you know, if you throw all those items in your bag, that's what your pack's going to end up looking like. And but anyhow, we've gone over just kind of a basic definition, took a look at some planning, recommendation on a pack, and then took a look at the different contents and that kind of jazz. So that is pretty much the lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it took a little while to go through all that stuff. And I would be interested in hearing your feedback on it and what you think, you know, could be changed up and how you would do things differently. But these are my thoughts on it. So as always, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate that you're a patron. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. And you really make all the difference, to be honest with you. So thank you very much for this. And we will see you on another video here shortly.